morning. Thank you to Elliot and Jonathan for the wonderful music this morning. My name is Lorene Stokes, and I am a member of the Worship Services team, and it is my honor to be with you this morning. We gather today on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh people. Some of you who are here on Truth and Reconciliation Sunday remember that we learned that our congregation's first permanent building, our first church, was occupied in the same year as people were forcibly displaced from Sinach, a village a mere 2 kilometers away from that building. We don't know how our ancestors responded at that time, but we who are here today can choose to move forward in a spirit of conciliation and healing, becoming better stewards of the land by deepening our relationship with this place and by supporting Indigenous-led initiatives for healing. For those of you that are here for the first time this morning, whether you're here visiting or checking us out, I'm very glad that you decided to join us. I hope you get a chance to get to know us a little bit better. Our community is diverse, and we are united in our search for meaning, our dedication to spiritual growth, to social justice, and reverence for nature and for all life. We embody these values in many different ways, some of us through music or other types of artistic expression, like the beautiful paintings on our walls, and many through worship and religious education for all ages, or through direct ethical action. I hope you stay to get to know us better. We're now going to take a moment to widen our welcome and say hello to each other. When you hear Elliot start to play the piano, please return your attention to the front and join us in singing hymn number 1 in the Grey Hymnal, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door. The words will also be on the screen up on my left.
May nothing evil cross this door, and may ill fortune never pry about these windows. May the roar and rain go by. By faith made strong, the rafters will withstand the battering of the storm. His heart and all the world will shield to keep you warm. He shall walk softly through these rooms, touching our lips with holy wine, till every casual
Here we have gathered up the elements of our lives. Aware and unaware, we have also carried them to this place. The joy of waking and living, the pleasure in meaningful work, the blush of health, the pain of illness, the grief of loss, the gift of love. Some of these we have carried a long way. Some have bent our backs until our eyes could no longer see the horizon. Some have carried us upward with purpose, feathered wing in flight. All we have carried through the seasons of our lives has brought us here to this moment and to this place that we make sacred in our coming together. I now invite forward Mary Beam to light our chalice. As Mary ends their term as our past president, when you serve as president, you go into an extra very long inning, and so Mary has done that with grace this year. Together we light this chalice, together we see its light. With applause and thanks to Mary, with kindness and in the deep bonds of community, with love for the human family and all its variety, with reverence before the world and its teeming web of life, we care for our earthly home and for each other with courage, with love, and with justice. I now invite forward children of all ages and to join me for the story up here at the front. Thank you, Mary. I love it. These are some very big kids.
Taller than you even.
So I know that I often say that this is one of my favorite books when I present almost any book, but this truly is my favorite children's book, and it's written by my friend Carol Martignaco, and it's called The Everything Seed, a Story of Beginnings. Have you ever watched a seed grow? Have you ever noticed how it begins so small, so still, so quiet, like a gift waiting to be opened? And how slowly it wakes up, begins to unfold, growing into something larger, and larger, and larger. Then you know that whatever comes from a seed usually ends up looking very little like the seed it came from, which is also true of the very first seed. Once, long, long ago, way back before the beginning, so long ago there was no such thing as time because there was no one there to count it. Everywhere was a huge, deep, mysterious place like something waiting to happen. There were no stars, no sun or moon. There was no place like Earth, not a drop of water or a single tree or rock or flower, and no living beings anywhere. But in that deep, waiting space was hidden the tiniest point of something no bigger than a seed. I want to be sure that you can see it. It was not a flower seed. It was not an oak tree seed. It was not a seed of corn, although all those things were included in the seed. You might call it an everything seed because that is what it became. No one knows where that first seed came from or how it was planted or how it knew, in the way that only seeds seem to know, how long to wait for just the right moment to sprout and grow. But all at once, this tiny seed, cradled and nourished in the rich soil of space, woke up, broke open, and began to unfold, unfolding, unfolding, and blossoming forth into an enormous blazing ball of bright light, like a great-grandmother's son. And the universe was born. Out fluttered the galaxies like a storm of snowflakes swirling and gathering into the brightest, most blindingly beautiful clouds of stars. And out of those star clouds whirled our own star, the one we call the sun, and our Earth, and our moon, and all the round spinning planets we have learned how to name. And this is the secret of that tiny seed. You and I were there at the very beginning. Just as the idea for each leaf on a big oak tree lies hidden inside an acorn, we were there with all the stars and planets, all the rocks and oceans, plants and animals and people. Everything that is now, ever was, or ever will be was inside that tiny first seed. So whenever you hold a seed in your hand and wonder what it could become, imagine how you and all that is here once came from the tiniest speck of the everything seed, before it sprouted and grew long, long ago in the way back beginning of time. Now, if this were an ordinary story, it would end right here, but this is the story of the universe that keeps unfolding. What once began in a blazing blossom of light continues every day. New stars sprout open in the deep soil of space. New plants and animals appear on the earth. Seeds of many kinds are scattered everywhere to help us remember. And new people are born every day with the spark of that first light still alive and burning deep inside, waiting, like the everything seed, to shine in ways that are yet to be known. And that is our story. Thank you for listening so attentively. I appreciate it. We will sing you off now with direction from Kirsten.
Children's group will be exploring seeds and another story of how a garden was created from an empty lot by many, many people with care and with love. And look, there's Benji. The story just finished, but we're gonna go and learn some more about it, okay? And today there is the parent coffee chat, well, there's lunch, but a parent chat table afterwards. So we will be watching your kids till 12:45.
Good morning. My name's Ralph Thoreau, and I'm blessed to serve on the board here at Van U. You're often told that there's lots that goes on around here. Well, today is no exception, so listen up. Right after the service in Hewitt, there is a lunch from our environment team, and if what I saw prior to service being sliced up is any hint, there's some yummy stuff in there. So don't miss that. Also, this coming Thursday, the 20th, at BC Hydro Theater, Center for Interactive Research on Sustainability, all my relations, you'll see some of these flyers on the tables in Hewitt after service. Frank Tester is the director and co-producer of this event, and join them for a film and discussion during this climate emergency week. Also, after service, at the board table in the corner, next to the goodies that Julia and George provide for a second life, the Reverend Dr. Philip Hewitt's book, A Considered Life, will be for sale. Price is $25. Please seek out Mary Lage in Hewitt after service. And this is quite a book. It's certainly from a gentleman who led a considered life. I'm not done. As you know, a couple of months ago, we instituted a question of the month for you all to respond to. We're now on to the second question in that series, which is, what's the boldest thing we could do in the next year to ensure the vitality and sustainability of our congregation 3 years from now? Mull that over. If something strikes you, you could go to vanu.ca/ what is it? Feedback. and, or you can fill out one of the slips that you'll find at the board table after service, or you can just come and strike up a conversation and we can make notes on some ideas that you might have. Today, at 1 o'clock after lunch, I'm sure most of you are already aware, here and online is our AGM, our annual general meeting. This is important stuff. So if you can be here in person, wonderful. If you can't be, please try to check in online. One reminder, proxy votes must be sent to derek@vanu.ca, derek@vanu.ca. So if your vote is going to be handled by someone here, you got to do that first. Also, and for this text, we thank our editor-at-large, Christian. It's that time of year. You're wearing your nice warm jacket, the neighbors have turned on their twinkly lights, and all Mariah Carey wants for Christmas is you. It's time for the annual Chalice Choir Advent Concert. Join us on Sunday, November 30th, 2 weeks from today, 2:30, for a festive afternoon of songs you know, songs you love, and music to get you in the festive spirit. Buy tickets online anytime at vanu.ca/choir, or grab them after service today and next Sunday in Hewitt Hall. This will be a great event, a lot of fun, it always is. Get your tickets early, bring friends and family. There will be a reception afterwards. We hope to see each and every one of you there. And that's my story, I'm sticking to it. See you at 1 o'clock.
Tall. Hello, my name is Cecilia, and I'm a member of the VANU Outreach Opportunities Fund team. And I'm just going to briefly talk about the new Outreach Opportunities Fund recipient for this period, which is Raven Trust. So, oh, great. So there's some slides that will be accompanying. So Raven Trust focuses on environmental justice driven by community support and action. They help power change by combining legal advocacy with grassroots engagement. Raven was founded in 2009 with the goal of transforming Canada's legal system to uphold Indigenous rights. Their future vision is a future where Indigenous laws, rights, and stewardship are fully respected, and where communities have equitable access to justice within a healthy environment. Raven's team is a combination of both Indigenous and settler staff, who all share a deep commitment to Indigenous sovereignty and environmental justice. They're a small but passionate group that combine diverse skills and experiences to drive Raven's mission forward. Raven partners with Indigenous nations pursuing legal cases that defend their lands and rights. Their fundraising and advocacy have contributed to some landmark victories, protecting sacred territories, stopping destructive projects, and strengthening treaty and title rights. The impact is impressive. Raven currently supports 10 active campaigns and 2 active funds. They've contributed to 8 court victories, including 2 at the Supreme Court level, and have backed 42 nations so far. Each win brings us all closer to a more just and sustainable future. Each campaign represents a commitment to stand alongside nations throughout their legal journey. Some current cases involve issues like Aboriginal title, treaty rights, environmental protection, and the implementation of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Through community support such as ours, these nations can reshape Canadian law. Raven runs two main funds, the Community Action Fund and the Intervenor Fund. These help cover practical and cultural costs of legal processes, from travel and translation to community ceremonies, ensuring that justice respects Indigenous traditions as well as legal standards. So this next quote is from a Wet'suwet'en chief, and it really captures the heart of Raven's work. Indigenous communities face huge power imbalances. Governments and industries are well funded by resource extraction, while nations rely on public generosity. Raven helps bridge that gap by turning compassion into concrete legal support. So to learn more, you can visit their website at raventrust.com or read about them in your order of service. So every contribution helps uphold Indigenous rights and protect our shared environment. Thank you for your generous support. And now, an offering for the good work of Vancouver Unitarians and Raven Trust will be taken through the baskets as the ushers come forward or by texting to the number on your screen. Thank you.
Please join with me in saying our affirmation of gratitude, which should be on the screen. Maybe. We give from our hearts, grateful to share and receive. Hope blooms from kindness.
Good morning. I'm Karen Thoreau. I'll be reading today's candle requests, and Ralph, who you met, will light the candles. We take time in every service to share our celebrations, our sorrows, our joys, and our concerns by lighting candles together. Some of you have made requests for the YouTube chat through our website or here in our sanctuary in our book of celebrations and concerns. As each candle is lit, please take a moment to hold each request in your heart and join us at the end by saying we light these candles together. We light our first candle for the peace of the world and the well-being of all. As a community of compassion and care, we continue holding in our hearts refugees and immigrants anywhere who are denied justice, people of the world who are rising up to have their voices heard, and people everywhere whose lives are touched by violence and war, poverty, or hunger. May they be well. Christopher Warren says to please light a candle for my girlfriend Anastasia in Kharkiv, Ukraine. We light a candle for Jennifer McKinnon, whose father passed away suddenly on Friday at his home in Atlanta. Jennifer said he was happy and among friends. The welcomers and greeters send their sympathy. Their thoughts are with her. We light a candle of best wishes to Reverend Frances Deverell as she recovers from surgery at VGH. She is grateful for our prayers. We offer our condolences to the friends and family of Tony Buckland, who will gather at 3 p.m. in the fireside room with Reverend Shawn to celebrate his life. All are welcome. And happily, Jeff Gomery and Louise Bunn are delighted to welcome a new puppy into their lives. We'll light a candle of happiness for them. We light the final candle for ourselves, for our unspoken joys and sorrows. Please join me in saying, we light these candles together.
To help us transition to a time of reflection or of prayer or meditation or even simple silence, I have a short story of something that happened to me last week. We gathered in the dark, yawning and shivering at midnight, our torsos lit only by the moon and the occasional awkward glow of car dome lights. We were trying to recognize each other by voice. We stumbled along a rocky path, lit by unsteady hands holding a bright flashlight, and then slipped alongside the breakwater to the sand below. Our host for the evening pointed at a slow pulsing light camouflaged by the lights of a freighter offshore. Head there. As long as the flashing light is in front of us, we'll be all right. We stumbled along like toddlers, the sand sinking underfoot and embracing our gumboots, pulling us down, making us unsteady. Colors and shapes were reduced to what can be seen in moonlight and the reflected lights of downtown Vancouver. Walking through puddles, I had a visceral memory of the yard in front of my childhood home flooding with a giant puddle. I remember the magic of wading out through the puddle and examining the grass floating underwater. The world transformed and made magical to my 6-year-old self. Tonight, time was measured in footsteps. Distance was invisible in the dark. I looked for our human-made North Star, and distressed I couldn't see the beacon in the distance anymore. And then I realized it was still there, but beside me, only 100 meters away and well above my head. We had walked to Poksha, as it is known in the Squamish language. We'd walked there at the lowest of low tides, only hours before the sand underfoot had been covered by 5 meters of water. We huddled and milled around a fire, watching a heart appear in the clouds, a green streak of a falling star, and the lights of the city get ever so slightly dimmer as people went to bed. We were enchanted, even as the ships slid quietly past each other in English Bay. I was blessed with wonder. I felt the same magic I felt as a 6-year-old seeing a mundane lawn transformed by water. I was in a place I felt was not truly meant to exist in the world, and yet it does. And my heart is bigger because of it. Please join me in 2 minutes of silence.
It began as a prank, but the joke quickly took on a life of its own. In the early 1960s in Carleton College in Minnesota, like many universities at the time, they had a lot to say about what students could and couldn't do outside of class, taking on a role akin to the students' parents and looking after their moral development. The school's paternalistic policies divided women and men into different dorms and quite unfairly imposed a curfew, but only on women. Carleton College also required students attend weekly religious services. One night in 1963, 3 young men sitting in a dorm room decided to rebel. They would start their own religion and attempt to get credit for attending its services. After all, they thought any religion that they might invent was no more or no less true than any other religion. Apparently, in deciding on a name for this new faith, one of the men, Howard Cherniak, who was raised in a secular Jewish family, recalled that his parents, when asked about their religion, would try to shut down pesky questions by emphatically stating that they were Druids, as in that mysterious ancient religious tradition that traces back to the British Isles. Because these young men, knew next to nothing about actual Druids from the past or the present, they decided to call their new religion the Reformed Druids of North America. The students crafted organizing tenets open enough not to alienate people of other faiths. Nature is good, more or less. They drew a sigil, a magical symbol, and donned their robes. They wrote a liturgy, built an altar in the college's arboretum, called upon the Earth Mother, and passed around the waters of life, which was actually watered-down whiskey, which was in clear violation of the college's alcohol policy. And so it was that the Reformed Druids of North America were born. Cherniak submitted a public letter to the Dean of Students asking how the college, which encouraged intellectual questioning within its classes, could call any established religion more valid than the one they had created. He never received an answer, but declared victory nonetheless. Feeling they had made their point after a few months, Cherniak resolved from there on out to sleep in on Sunday mornings. Although Cherniak spent his Sundays in bed, other students continued either for protest or because they enjoyed gathering to hear something with the cadence of worship among the trees. The protest worked. Within a year, the religion requirement at the school was abandoned. So it may surprise you to hear that over 60 years later, the Reformed Druids of North America, both as born of a protest and as a gag, is still a going concern, with chapters, or more precisely groves, spread across the US, with even a couple of these groves in Canada. It turns out that not everyone chose to sleep in on Sunday mornings in the 60s. Some of the students continued to gather for ritual, to sing and chant, to pray and meditate, because they found power in this new religion that had inadvertently led them into a deepening connection with nature and something of the divine. Across the passing years, as the students graduated or returned home or went off to other universities for graduate school, they took their Reformed Druid faith with them, starting new groves wherever they went. While settling on a satisfying definition of religion is notoriously difficult, the most convincing case for me that these latter-day Druids qualify as one is that their movement has, over the last 6 decades, splintered into a number of smaller denominations over theological disputes and arguments about worship practices. If that is not the sure sign of being a religion, I'm not quite sure what else is. This story has stayed with me over the past several months as I have thought about the challenge put to me by Louise Bunn last winter when she described what she would like to hear in the sermon she bought at our auction. Thank you again, Louise. While we talked about many different issues I might explore in this sermon, the one that has caught fire for me is Louise's wonderings about who controls access to the divine. Who gets to say what is sacred and what is not? Who is allowed to take on the priestly powers to conjure magic or lead the rituals that touch us, that move us, and that can transform the world around us in meaningful and material ways? These are hardy questions with a long and complicated pedigree. A questioning of the place of authority, of ritual power in religion that is weaved into and throughout the history of religion itself. From the Druids that are thought to have gathered on Salisbury Plain millennia ago, and shamans and healers and medicine workers through time, down to priests today celebrating the Mass on the altar, or a Unitarian community such as ours that will gather for our AGM this afternoon, practicing as a religious democracy under Robert's Rules of Order, but more importantly, under our 8 principles, our 6 sources, our 5 aspirations, and our covenant of healthy relations. The use of religious power can take many forms. To know me well is to know that I can obsess over etymologies. I love words and the history of words. I find a thrill in tracing their evolution over time into the groupings of syllables and sounds we use to communicate. One of my favorites is the backstory to the term hocus pocus. There is a compelling theory that these words we now associate with magicians and tricksters trace back to the Latin Mass, a corruption of the words spoken as the priest with his back to the people raised the communion host at the moment of transubstantiation, the magical moment in some Christian traditions when it's believed that bread becomes the body of Christ. Hoc estis corpus meum, hocus pocus. A second modern definition of hocus pocus is that it is meaningless talk or activity, typically designed to trick someone or to conceal the truth. Or, put more plainly, a bunch of hooey, a load of nonsense. Magical words that hold a long history of skepticism towards at least some of those who across the centuries have claimed spiritual authority and the power to control access to the sacred. This history of doubt and distrust of such authority is a feature of our own history as Unitarians. In fact, there is a deeper, older story behind our symbol, the flaming chalice, that gets to the heart of this. In the early 16th century, Jan Hus, a Catholic priest serving in Prague, defied church authority by preaching not in Latin, but in the Czech language. He also argued that the wine of communion should be consumed not only by the priest, as was the practice at the time, but by everyone who had gathered for the ritual. These views got him excommunicated, and they eventually got him burned at the stake. In the wake of his death over 6 centuries ago, the image of the coming together of the cup of wine and the fires that consumed his body was a flaming chalice, a symbol of religious freedom and spiritual defiance, and a potent sign that the powers of ritual were meant to be shared with all. In the earliest origin story of our flaming chalice is embedded fundamental questions of who holds religious authority, who has access to the sacred, who is empowered to celebrate our rituals. There have been many twists and turns in trying to answer these questions throughout the history of our tradition. During the Puritan period of our history in the 16th and 17th centuries, authority was vested in our clergy and, by and large, their interpretations of Scripture. This remained mostly the case even as the Unitarian tradition emerged from the Puritans in the early 18th century through a process of challenging the Christian orthodoxy of the time. But then, in the middle of the 19th century, a curious thing happened, what you might call the transcendentalist turn. A turn that was ushered in dramatic fashion by Ralph Waldo Emerson during his address to the graduates of Harvard Divinity School in 1838. Reverend Emerson, who had recently left the Unitarian ministry after deciding that he could no longer in good conscience serve communion to his congregation, delivered a stem-winder of a speech, so much so that he would not be invited back to speak at Harvard for decades. His famous Divinity School address took as its formal title, "Acquaint Thyself Firsthand with Deity." Today, in Divinity Hall Chapel, where he spoke, a pulpit that I had been privileged to speak from a number of times, the title is inscribed in a marble plaque on the wall, marking the most famous or most infamous thing to happen in that chapel's 2 centuries of existence. In his address that mid-July day, Emerson turned for his inspiration not from a focus on Scripture, but to the grandeur of the natural world. With your eyes closed, I invite you to take in his opening paragraph, with apologies for the highly gendered language of his time. In this refulgent summer, it has been a luxury to draw the breath of life. The grass grows, the buds burst, the meadow is spotted with fire and gold in the tint of flowers. The air is full of birds and sweet with the breath of the pine, the balm of Gilead, and new hay. Night brings no gloom to the heart with its welcome shade. Through the transparent darkness, the stars pour their almost spiritual rays. Man under them seems a young child, and his huge globe a toy. The cool night bathes the world as with a river and prepares his eyes again for the crimson dawn. The mystery of nature was never displayed more happily. The corn and the wine have been freely dealt to all creatures, and the never-broken silence with which the old bounty goes forward has not yielded yet one word of explanation. One is constrained to respect the perfection of this world in which our senses converse. How wide, how rich, what invitation from every property it gives. In its fruitful soils, in its navigable sea, in its mountains of metal and stone, in its forest of all woods, in its animals, in its chemical ingredients, in the powers and path of light, heat, attraction, and life. It is well worth the pith and heart of great people to subdue and enjoy it. the planters, the mechanics, the inventors, the astronomers, the builders of cities, and the captains, history delights to honor. This was no typical treatise on Christian theology. This was an opening, a radical and sensual invitation to a way of knowing the natural world as divine. Later in this address, Emerson encouraged his listeners, he actually used the verb admonish, to leave behind the old forms and models and imaginations of sacred men, and instead to, quote, dare to love God without mediator or veil. And he spoke of our knowledge of the divine as coming from intuition, through our own felt experience of the sacred all around us, without the need of an intermediary, without benefit of clergy. Instead, the divine was to be felt with a direct knowing taken in through our very senses. Faith, he said, should blend with the light of rising and of setting suns, with the flying cloud, the singing bird, and the breath of flowers. This was not the stuff of Paul's epistle to the Romans. But it did give rise to the movement known as Transcendentalism and gave birth to a 2 centuries-old tradition within Unitarianism of finding spiritual sustenance in the living landscape of the natural world, what some of us today call a theology of religious naturalism. It also made the case that religious authority ultimately rests in the hands of each person as they navigate the meaning of life on this beautiful, improbable planet. Now, some, of course, consider this heresy, but I see it as our way back. At the end of the 19th century, the German sociologist Max Weber described the process of secularization of modern life as the disenchantment of the world, our letting go of religious, spiritual, and magical explanations for phenomena in favor of more scientific and rational views of life. While his theory has been severely challenged, this disenchantment process of his has been a significant part of the story of Unitarianism and UUism for more than a century. Over this century, we have questioned authority, embraced humanism, and moved much of the conversation about the divine to the proverbial dustbin. My fear is that we threw out the blessings of spirituality with the bathwater of superstition. For the past 50 years, we have had plenty of battles between the pagans and the humanist among us, between the mystics and the dyed-in-the-wool rationalist, a struggle, as I see it, to determine who controls access to the sacred, who gets to claim spiritual authority among us. I am relieved to say that this struggle is not what it once was. There's less energy for the fight than there used to be. Perhaps that is because we've just worn ourselves out. But I suspect and I hope that there is another reason behind this shift. I sense that we have begun to find common ground through wonder, through a deepening connection to the natural world and our growing awareness of the hard fact of our interdependence on this good green earth. This is our spiritual and theological inheritance in this tradition. It's never needed to be an either-or choice between our hearts and our heads, between the mystical and the rational. We are built for both and capable of holding it all with its complications and its questions. We are made, in the words of William Blake, to see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. That is what those Reformed Druids discovered, much to their surprise, on that college campus some 60 years ago. It is what Emerson was pointing to and Jan Hus before him, that the sacred is open to us all, that we are free to bask in the wonder of it all, and that there is transformative power to be found through a direct encounter of the divine, by whatever names we may call it, and whether we consider ourselves theists or agnostics or atheists. Let us then, rational mystics, all of us, take our place in this proud tradition and, moved by an abiding love of the natural world, do our part to re-enchant this place we call home. Amen. I invite you to join now in singing our closing hymn, I Wish I Knew How, this anthem of the civil rights movement made famous by the great Nina Simone.
I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all these chains holding me. I wish I could say all the things I could say. Say them loud, say them clear, for the whole world to hear. Say them loud, say them clear, for the whole world to hear. I wish I could share all the love that my heart retold, all the bonds that still keep us apart. I wish I could know what it means to be free. Say free and agree, everyone should be free. Liberty and agree, everyone should be free. I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things I can do, but one day overdue, I'd be starting anew. But one day overdue, I'd be starting anew. I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found I could fly. I'd soar to the sun and look down at the sea. But I sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free. And I sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free.
May this ending be our beginning. Let us begin again and again to wonder and to cherish and to act, so that at day's end we will be content, knowing that we have given our all to this life that is ours. We now extinguish our chalice, but its light we carry with us out into the world. Let us now sing. Be the flame of peace. See you at the AGM.